Imagine losing everything, even though you did nothing wrong. Unfortunately, this scenario is all.
So they said, let's go to court. And did I predict this, Newt? Did I say this? I've been saying this from the day I heard they were going to send out tens of millions of ballots. I said exactly, because either they were going to win, or if they didn't win, they'll take us to court. So Florida was a tremendous victory, 377,000. Texas, as we said. Ohio, think of this. Ohio, a tremendous state, a big state. I love Ohio. We won by 8.1%, 461. Think of it. Almost 500,000 votes. North Carolina, big victory with North Carolina. And so we won there. We lead by 76,000 votes with almost nothing left. And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay? It's a very sad moment. To me, this is a very sad moment, and we will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it. So I just want to thank you, and I want to thank all of our support. I want to thank all of the people that worked with us, and Mr. Vice President, say a few words, please. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to join you in thanking more than 60 million Americans who have already cast their vote for 4 more years for President Donald Trump in the White House. And while the votes continue to be counted, we're going to remain vigilant, as the President said. The right to vote has been at the center of our democracy since the founding of this nation, and we're going to protect the integrity of the vote. But I really believe with all of my heart, with the extraordinary margins, Mr. President, that you've inspired in the states that you just described, and the way that you launched this movement across the country to make America great again, I truly do believe, as you do, that we are on the road to victory, and we will make America great again. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, no, you totally can.
Mike, there you have it, the President and Vice President Mike Pence making their remarks. President Trump saying, as far as I'm concerned, we've already won it. It will be the only headline that you read when you wake up tomorrow. Every newspaper in the country is now furiously rejiggering their front page so that they can talk about the red mirage, and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Google. I am certain before any of us are asleep tonight will already be fact-checking the president, censoring the president, saying that, look, they told us this was going to happen. We don't have to guess what's going to happen. All of the major social networks and media organizations said they would not allow someone to say what President Trump just said tonight. Michael, what do you think is going to happen?
I think the left is cheating. I think they've been cheating since 2016. I think they're obviously cheating now. I think they're cheating by changing the rules. I think they're cheating by not continuing to count the ballots overnight. I think they're cheating in court, and I think they're cheating with crooked elected officials like the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, who called the election for Biden before Election Day even. And I think it is a damn fine thing that the president is standing up to it. He said something tonight that I think a lot of people are going to say was extreme. He shouldn't have gone that far. He said, I think we're going to win. As far as I'm concerned, we already have. That was where it went far, right? Because he's saying, as far as I'm concerned, we've already won this race. That is the kind of extreme rhetoric that you're not going to get from Mitt Romney, you're not going to get it from John McCain, you didn't get it from Mike Pence afterward. That makes people uncomfortable. It is the evidence, maybe it's the negative thing, but it's also the positive thing about Trump, that he is a fighter. He is going to go to court. I don't think he said anything there about ever violating the law or cheating or doing anything.
So Michael, didn't the left, they set up the president for months
Yes.
for this very moment. First by saying he's definitely going to win on election night, but that's only going to be part of the story.
They did.
That narrative's been in play. And he will not concede the election.
Yep.
And so what happened? Exactly what they predicted. Election night, here he is doing very well. They pushed pause on the voting. Essentially, they prepared us to see the red mirage begin to fade over the coming hours. And the president did not concede, and in fact said he's going to fight to the end. Ben, what's your take?
Okay, so Mike Pence said what you're supposed to say, which is the exact same thing that Biden said, right? Which is, we think we're on the road to victory, and when all the votes are counted, then the votes will be counted. And, he could have left open the possibility that litigation would be necessary if voter fraud was detected or suspected, right? I mean, there's a responsible way to do this. I'm sorry, but it is deeply irresponsible for the president of the United States to declare in the middle of an election where not even close to all the votes have been counted in major swing states that he has already won the election and that it's a major fraud on the American people otherwise. I'm sorry. It's just as irresponsible for him to say that shit as it is for the AG of Pennsylvania to say that shit.
The question is what votes are going to be counted. The question is, in Pennsylvania, are they going to invent a bunch of votes because they don't even need to be
And if there's
posted?
evidence that a bunch of votes are invented, then it'll end up in court. But to preemptively declare fraud before any of those votes have been counted, to declare that he's already won the election when 60% of when he says things like, I'm up by 100,000 votes in Michigan, and 60% of the vote has been counted, or 65% of the vote, so there's no way that I could lose the state. Are you kidding me? Of course there's a way you could lose the state. You can just count the rest of the votes. Okay, if we had taken that logic in Florida, he would have lost Florida. If we'd taken that logic in Texas, we would have lost Texas. That's not the way this works. He's saying in Arizona we need to wait until every single vote is counted. He's exactly right about Arizona. You can't then say, okay, we're not going to wait until every vote is counted in legally counted, right? The ones that we all agree they have to be legally cast. That means none of this crap where you find a box of ballots that are filled, 2 days late with no postmarks. That is well deserving of any sort of lawsuit he wants to bring. That is well deserving of every screech that he can bring to bear. But you can't preemptively declare that this vote is a fraud on the American people before there's evidence that has happened. Nor can you declare that you have preemptively won the election before the election is won.
I'll push back just a little bit, Ben, because generally you and I see eye to eye on these things. There is a fraud being perpetrated, though. To Michael's point, the fraud has been going on, for 4 years, but certainly the fraud has been going on for several months. The left has been, in a very sophisticated way, creating this exact moment. And by pushing pause in some of these states on the vote counting overnight, what they are essentially saying is we don't want the count to end before our opportunity to cheat begins. Bingo. In other words, we got to send everybody home so that if more ballots need to come in, there's no way to read that other than an opportunity for cheating. Well, now you might say they're not going to cheat, or you might say there's no evidence that they have cheated. It might even be factually true that they don't cheat, but they are giving themselves room to cheat.
Okay, that is all possible, and what he could easily say is they shouldn't have paused the voting, and we have our lawyers on the ground in all of these states making sure there will be no cheating, and we are ready to file lawsuits if we detect the first sign of voter fraud. Mm-hmm. Right? That is all perfectly within bounds. To declare himself the preemptive victor of an election in which half the votes have not yet been counted in any of the swing states he needs to win. And remember, if he loses Arizona, which it looks like he's going to, he doesn't just need to win Pennsylvania. He needs to win Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania and Michigan.
Right.
Right? I mean, and when he says that putting aside the fact that he preemptively declared that he'd won Georgia, he may very well win Georgia, but Georgia's very close at this point. Yeah. Like, I don't like this stuff. I would be on. I spent half my show today ripping up the Pennsylvania AG for saying the exact same thing. So I'm not going to now turn around and pretend.
I think there is a distinction, which is that the Pennsylvania AG actually has authority in the Pennsylvania election, and Donald Trump actually doesn't have any authority over it.
And the Pennsylvania the AG saying before the even votes started to be counting, the thing that Donald Trump did in this speech is he not only just made the case, he quantified it. He quantified large, significant leads. And my take on this is different than yours, Ben. My take is that he is saying that the fraud occurred when they stopped the counting. Period. Yes. That's when it occurred. And there's no question that whatever happened to stop the counting happened because Donald Trump had commanding leads in all of these states. Now, if you're right, and Donald Trump actually could have lost those states, let's just say that God's counting the votes and we get an actual count for once, then so maybe Trump did lose these states. But it's the stopping of the counting that's the fraud. And it's the stopping of the counting in the same way that you throw a circuit breaker when the market starts to crash.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it takes away, it allows Biden to establish the narrative. And I think what Trump did was he established the counter narrative. And I think he did it right up front. And I am tired of our side having to say constantly, I'm with you about the politicians making these kind of claims. I'm 100% with you on that. But there comes a point when you have to say that if you are going to be the victim of a fraud and you don't say, I'm a victim of fraud
right now,
then the story will be set in stone. The sooner he makes that claim, the sooner.
Listen, I want him to win, right?
I know you
I
want
endorse
him to win.
him. I want him to win. I want him to win. What I don't want is a situation in which either he wins and he has preemptively lessened his own victory by doing this, or he loses, and then everybody on our side of the aisle who wanted him to win believes without proper evidence that the election is false and wrong. By the way, he also happened to, just as a matter of PR, step on the fact that they retained the Senate and they won additional House seats. Right? Why is he downplaying?
Except that for Donald Trump, again, we've talked about his flaws and his virtues tonight. One of his fundamental flaws is Donald Trump doesn't care if Republicans retain the Senate if Donald Trump doesn't retain the presidency. He is not wired to think that way. Donald Trump doesn't think he's not a self-sacrificial figure. Donald Trump sees the entire election as about Donald Trump. That's how Donald Trump sees the world. He sees buildings with his name on it, and he sees buildings without his name on it that his name could one day be on, right? So I think what I would say is I don't like the president saying as far as he's concerned he's won. I think that that's the overstep. I think that I agree with Bill and Michael that to say that a fraud is happening right now when you stop counting the vote in states where he is ahead, I actually do believe that that's a fraud. It's a fraud. It may not be stealing the election, but it is a kind of fraud. It's giving the opportunity for capriciousness. You're throwing the breaker on a collapsing stock market thing is accurate. Something could happen in a collapsing stock market organically to stop the collapse, but they're not giving that thing the opportunity to play out. They're saying, stop everything.
I just have a question. I'm perfectly willing to say that may in fact be fraud. I'm not willing to say that is in and of itself fraud. I mean, what are they doing? Like, I need some evidence of what's actually
When has that
happened.
ever happened? Pennsylvania has new laws for this cycle. They've got the whole let's keep on voting until we get to the top. So put Pennsylvania aside.
I agree. There should be a lawsuit there immediately, of course.
But the lead he had in those other states was a significant lead, and it was an ongoing lead. So why did they stop counting?
Where all have they stopped counting?
Why? Why don't we know? Because every single election I've ever seen, certainly in this country, it may take 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning until they count the votes, but they keep counting until they get a number. So number one, why did they stop? And more importantly, I think, is how do they have the power to stop and get away with it? In other words, they were able to throw that circuit breaker on this election, and somehow they got away with it. And how does that happen?
Andrew?
Well, I think Ben is speaking in a universe that I recognize as the moral universe. He's saying something that is absolutely right and true. Unfortunately, we're not living in that universe. We're living in a universe of narrative in which one side controls the narrative completely and has been using that narrative for weeks, if not longer, to set up a system whereby they could steal the election, and Donald Trump's protests would seem to be the moral error. And so Donald Trump, as he always does, because he's tone deaf to it, he doesn't care about it, is ignoring that narrative and setting a narrative of his own. You know, I have to say that that's been pretty effective for the last 4 years. It bothers me, too. It bothers me what he just said.
This is the issue, though.
Because, no, it bothers me what he just said. But he's a voice alone. He's a man alone against an incredible machine.
Wait, hold on. In what world is he a man alone?
Oh.
Wait, hold on. We all spend our lives defending against the lie. Every one of us in this room spends our entire life defending against the lies that they are telling. And if you're telling me that there's not one of us who'd be out there screaming with him from the top of the building about voter fraud in Pennsylvania when it is evidenced, I've literally said that he should have said in that speech, if there is evidence of voter fraud, we have lawyers on the ground in every state to make sure that this fraud does not does not do this. I want to again. I want to see.
As always, I wish Trump were that guy. I wish he had the way of framing things with that incredible strategy. He doesn't. He's a hammer. But he's a hammer up against a very big nail. And they really have worked this, and they have the power to work it. We don't have the power to shape the narrative the way they do yet. And so he is fighting back against that narrative. Does he do it clumsily? Does he do it arrogantly and wrongly? Yeah, okay, but you can't discount that narrative. As a moral entity, you can't discount that narrative.
I'm on his. I want him to fight back against that narrative. We all want him to fight back against that narrative.
To do it in a way that's not him.
I also want him to do it in a way that doesn't set the predicate for the next Democratic narrative, which is going to be that if there is violence in the cities, they now blame him for the violence.
Well, this is the biggest potential danger to the president tonight, is that the left has been setting up. The left has Trump's number right now. They've known for weeks what he would do in this moment, and they started creating. You say he's owning the narrative right now.
I'm not saying he's owning the narrative. I'm saying he's fighting the narrative with the narrative.
But they baited him, I think, into making this statement. This is what he just said is what they are the most prepared for him to have said, and that's the danger. I can't. I want to be careful about being factually accurate. I'm not seeing what states have paused the voting. I see some chatter about paused voting. The president definitely implied paused voting. Who has actually paused their voting?
Have we seen these states called?
Well, we've not.
The only state that should not be called sometime tonight is Pennsylvania because of this insane ruling. But every other state...
Didn't he call for the voting to not be counted yet? He said, keep voting and keep counting the votes in Arizona, but we need to stop what's going on in the blue states, didn't he?
No, he said keep counting. He said keep counting the votes. That's not inconsistent. If you kept counting the votes according to his lead and his trends in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, then he is the next president, or he is the president again.
I'm actually not sure if that's true. We have to count the votes to know. But what he's saying is quit finding votes. What he was very explicit about is keep counting votes. Don't keep accepting votes.
Right.
New vote. There should not be new ballots coming into the system, which I think is actually accurate. I don't think new ballots should be coming into the system.
So Ben, I have enormous respect for you, and this is a genuinely serious issue, and I don't know the answer to it. But here's what it comes down to for me. When American Marines first faced the Japanese in Guadalcanal, they fought them more or less fairly, the way they fought every other war, and the way they fought even with the Wehrmacht in Germany. But when they found out the Japanese would wave a surrender flag, and then they would go and take the surrender, and then they'd machine gun these guys down, or somebody who's calling for a corpsman has a Japanese soldier's got a grenade and explodes and takes 3 people out, then the Marines have to make a decision, and that decision is, do we fight on their level or do we lose? And that is the issue. And I don't have a simple answer for that, but the question is simply this: if you are fighting a dishonorable opponent and you decide that you're going to fight honorably, and that means that by fighting honorably you lose the cause, then evil takes over.
I just don't know what about the statement fights the cause is my issue. Meaning that having the lawyers file lawsuits, I'm all for. Having people there to make sure that the fraud doesn't occur, I'm all for.
I actually generally agree with this. I think that the president's statement was not, on the whole, useful. I think that the left baited him into a statement and he gave it to them. I think that there are aspects of the speech that were very strong. I think there are a few places where he overstepped and played right into the hands of Jack Dorsey. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if over the next few minutes we see, for the first time, the president actually gets suspended from some of these carte blanche from some of these social platforms, because he just crossed the red line that they've been setting up for him for the last several weeks. Let's put aside listen, we often disagree about the president's tone and tenor. Let's actually talk about what's going to happen next. Where is this going? What are we about to see take place?
Yeah, the big line, by the way, there is not the stuff where he says, I want all voting to stop. I think that we all agree here that the media is going to take that out of context, and they're going to use that to suggest that he actually wants people not to have their ballots legally counted. What he means is don't keep counting ballots after they're illegally cast. If they arrive at 4 o'clock in the morning, then that's past the deadline. I get that. It's the frankly we did win the election. That is
that's the one I didn't like.
No, I agree with
you. Well, he said, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, that's an important qualifier.
It is,
that's an important qualifier.
When has Trump ever been responsible in doing this? The only thing that does always comes back to me. You know, Trump drives me crazy this way. He does. He does. He says these things, and I just want to like shake him and say, no, that's not the way you put that. But I understand that he is up against this powerful narrative that is set up by corporations so huge with such reach that he is.
And by the way, Joe Biden didn't need to say, as far as I'm concerned, we've won the election, because the entire establishment that works for Joe Biden is saying it for him, and will be saying it for him.
But has been saying it for him for weeks.
And has already been saying it for him for weeks.
And listen, again, I get all of that, and I also get that Hillary Clinton spent 4 years claiming that she'd won an election she lost, and Stacey Abrams is governor of Georgia, and all of that, right? So when it comes to hearing about election respect from the Democrats, that I'm not willing to hear.
But I will say that one of the worst things that could happen, and it is a real possibility, is that if Donald Trump loses, and if he kind of pulls the Hillary Clinton and spends the next 4 years questioning the legitimacy of the election,
which he'll almost certainly do,
then there is no one left who actually believes in the system. Because the left rejects the system. They want to remake the system. Yeah. They say that the system is fundamentally flawed. If the right doesn't believe in the system anymore, we're at a true crisis as a country. We're going to go to the Daily Wire War Room and hear from Elisha Krauss and the gang down there for a moment.
Hey guys, we are wrapping up the night. I have been here, I think, for like 12 hours. It's been a lot of fun. And for some final consensus on what's happening on social media, I'm going to toss it over to Cassie Dillon.
So right now on social media, everyone is talking about the speech that Trump just gave. For his ultra supporters, it really energized them. It gave them some confidence. But in his non-supporter group, they're very angry about it. People are taking quotes out of it. They're saying that it was wrong with what happened. Some people are saying that it's wrong, that it'll go to the Supreme Court. One person said this is bad. So there's a lot of different messages coming out around his speech. Seems pretty partisan, which is how most of his speeches go. So we'll see what happens. We're going to have to keep an eye on social media for the next 24 hours, it looks like, to really know what people are thinking about what's going on. So I'm going to toss it back over to you guys to close out the night.
All right. And, of course, we have the War Room A-Team. I think we can call ourselves the A-Team. It's been a lot of fun. We've covered a lot of information. We're still waiting on a lot of information to come in. Editor-in-Chief of the Daily Wire, Bickley, what happened?
Could it have ended any other way by actually not ending? So it's not over. It's still going. There's still results to come in. You know, we look at it. Look, America's going to sleep. What's the situation? Trump, we said he had to win 7 of the 12 battleground states. Looks like he's got 5 of them. Pennsylvania, he's way ahead in. He's right about that. Can he possibly lose it? Statistically, yes, he could lose it. So it is possible. Both candidates have an argument. Arizona appears like he probably lost it. So we had talked about that with a different scenario. Our second scenario took into account an Arizona loss. Can he win with Arizona? Without Arizona, absolutely, he can win. If he won in Wisconsin, which he's performing still pretty well, again, could he lose when all the counts in? Yes, of course he could. A few hours from now, we're told that more of the counts coming in, and just no one can handle staying up that late. So we'll find out more about Wisconsin. We'll probably wake up tomorrow morning and know a little bit more about Wisconsin.
And by tomorrow morning, you mean like in a few minutes?
It is tomorrow. And I don't know. I don't even know what time it is. I'm so mixed up on time zones. We also, you know, Pennsylvania, we knew this was going to be a problematic state. We knew both candidates focusing on it big time, and especially with the late count allowed for up to 3 days. A lot of people are talking about, look, we might not know till Friday. Let's hope that's not the case, but it might be the case. So look, there's lots to continue to tune in for. There's lots to come. And I think both candidates have made really clear, they're not giving an inch.
Yeah, and
neither's going to give an inch. So this is going to go all the way. Every last vote, every last legal argument, that's what's coming in the next few days.
And one of the things that we've been talking about throughout the night with you guys and here in the War Room is the media narrative of what's happening, the too close to call, or not even calling actual states that Trump-Pence won or even Biden-Harris won. And Ian, this is something earlier that you spoke about. You thought that maybe 2020 would be a consensus and we would be able to have a consensus on the media. And is this election a referendum on the media? As of now, where does that sit?
Yeah, so really this election is obviously very politically based. It's politics, but a big part of it is also a cultural referendum. And Trump is an entirely cultural figure. And so we've had 4 years where the media have basically lied to us, like lied to our face, told us not to believe our own lying eyes. They've told us that burning cities are just the result of peaceful protests. It's been time after time after time where they're clearly just pushing Democrat narratives. This was our chance as conservatives to reject that, to make a very, very clear statement that the media and Biden are not really desired as representatives. The problem with this outcome is it creates a delay. It creates time for the adrenaline, like we're all feeling right now, to fade, and for the media to calm it down and then just redirect the narrative to really whatever it needs to be. Like, this needed to be definitive, to be a definitive indictment of their behavior. And the lack of definition is really going to, I think, make that easy for them. They're going to get away with it, is my real concern.
Okay, and then speaking of that narrative, what are you walking away with tonight, Cabot? I mean, we also didn't see the blue wave. We've been talking all night long about these polls that had Biden and Harris up a couple digits, not quite double digits, but pretty significant, beyond the margin of error, ended up being wrong, and things aren't so bad for the GOP in the House and the Senate?
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot of certainty right now in the presidential race. But there is certainty in one thing, and that's the narrative of a blue wave did not happen. We were assured from President Trump's first day in office there will be a huge blowback. The American people, once they have a chance to go back, they'll show that this was a terrible mistake they made. That simply did not happen. And the clearest evidence of that, beyond how close the presidential race is the Senate. The Republicans are looking like they're going to end, when all is said and done, once we got runoff elections in Georgia, that's going to be down in January. But when all is said and done, we're probably looking at 52 majority for Republicans in the Senate. The big takeaway there, if Joe Biden does win, and if court packing becomes a serious policy proposition, it's going to be very difficult to get that done with the Senate now in Republican control. That's something that if people are still uneasy, conservatives, uneasy about what's happening with Trump, they can go to bed knowing that they've got Mitch McConnell standing guard, if you will, on his, I was going to make a cocaine Mitch joke. I'm not going to make that. It's late in the night. I've got so many jokes in my head. But I think that's the main takeaway. And the second takeaway Ian brought up is just the way that the media, this is a repudiation of the media. This is people seeing, wait a second, I have been lied to, I've been misled. For all the Democrat talk of defund the police, defund the media. For the American people at home who are mad about what the media has been preaching them, you get the media you pay for. People are paying for that media. That's why the whole night I've been thinking, come to the Daily Wire. We're not going to push you through all of that. Defund the media and come join our team. That's where it's at right here.
Awesome.
It's a shameless pitch, but I've been thinking it all night.
It keeps us paid. Mama needs to get paid. That is why I'm here. Cabot, Ian, Bickley, it's been a lot of work, a lot of fun, and a total honor. Guys, tossing it back to you, and we are saying goodnight from the War Room.
Alicia, thank you for the good work tonight, and thanks to everybody in the social media war room and in the writing and data war room. Thank you to Cassie Dillon for her great work tonight. Thank you to you and to Cabot for your terrific pregame show, which went on for 3 hours this afternoon, and I think brought our Daily Wire members a lot of great information. It's been an unbelievable night, fellas. In 4 minutes, they're going to close, I believe, they're supposed to have, what has it been? They're supposed to have
170,000 absentee ballots in Michigan.
That's right.
I mean, in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin.
If those come in and they do not break heavily for Biden, then Trump's in pretty good shape in Wisconsin. Right now, he leads by about 100,000 votes in Wisconsin, 109,000 votes in Wisconsin. They're still waiting for some reporting in from Madison and from Milwaukee, but it is way too close for Democrats to feel any sense of comfort in Wisconsin.
Ben, what is your take? Wisconsin is a more liberal state than Pennsylvania. So does this have
I mean, that bodes well, obviously, for him in Wisconsin. If he's able to maintain Wisconsin, then suddenly he becomes the favorite again, right? If he maintains Wisconsin, assuming he maintains Georgia, which, again, is going to be extremely, extremely close, then he becomes the favorite again in the election after having lost Arizona, and that has now been confirmed by several different outlets as having gone.
It's actually, I have to say, surprising to me for the president to lose Arizona. I've spent some time in Arizona, even during COVID, and it seems like just classic Trump territory. I mean, Jeff Flake, Cindy McCain, is that the difference? Is that what's happened down there?
I think that he really ticked off a lot of people. The suburban area around Phoenix really cut against him. And you saw this in the Kristen Sinema election. Right, she should have lost that election. I mean, she was a radical in her younger days. She had a bevy of material for doing kind of crazy things, and she ended up winning that election fairly narrowly. They've lost both Senate seats in the course of the last 4 years. So that is a state that seems to be trending more in the purple direction or the blue direction, even while Florida seems to be trending more red. Ohio seems to be trending more red. The question in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin is, were those outliers last time, or were those things that are trending red? Overall, this is a much, much, much better night for Republicans than I think anybody had a right to expect based on the bad polling data going in. I mean, the fact is that the Republicans are going to maintain a Senate majority. That is a big win, and a lot of that has to do with the coattails of President Trump in some of these states. Right? I mean, the fact is that Trump winning North Carolina probably pushes Thom Tillis, who outperformed Trump by a couple of points, over the finish line. The fact is that Trump's intervention in some of the states like Iowa, like his late-breaking surge in Iowa, definitely helped Joni Ernst in Iowa. But Susan Collins wildly outperformed in Maine, so her maintaining that seat was really big. Daines outperforms in Montana. Those Senate races mattered an awful lot. In the presidential race, Florida, the early expectation by the polls is that he was going to lose Florida. He wins Florida walking away. He wins Ohio walking away. Georgia, too close for comfort. North Carolina, closer than it should be. But we're still finding out what exactly is going on. As far as his sort of final speech here, bottom line is this. Like virtually everything else Trump says, it's going to get litigated in court. And all the talk about, whether he won or whether he lost is going to move by the wayside, like much else that he says. I think it'll end up being, I think, more like a tempest in a teapot than anything else when it's all said and done. But the election isn't over. And if somebody tells you the election is over at this point, that is because they're not being completely honest with you. The fact is that until these big numbers come in, Philadelphia has not been counted in Pennsylvania. Okay, that's going to make a rather large difference, even though Trump has a 700,000 vote advantage.
Have they not counted anything from Pennsylvania? Or from Philadelphia?
They'll count like half of Philadelphia, a quarter of Philadelphia, something like that. So where you are in the state obviously makes a big difference as to what's coming in. It's not as though everything is equally proportioned, and so 60% is the same as 100%, right?
Right.
It all depends on where it's coming in.
For the first time since 2000, Americans are going to go to bed on election night not knowing who has actually won the presidency. Wow. That no matter how you slice it, that is bad for our republic. That is bad for people's faith in our institutions, bad for people's faith in our system of government. And anytime people have questions, anytime you have a bad night for our system of government, it's a good night for the left. So the problem that I see is at this point, even if the president does secure his reelection over the next hours or days or weeks, we have lost something important tonight to the narrative, to the left, to the way that people perceive.
I mean, I think a clean win was on the table for Trump here, right? He had the lawyers ready to go. So, I mean, he could have just said, listen, he could have said exactly word for word what Biden said, and then he could have walked away. And then when the evidence, I mean, he's the president. He can call a vote. He can call a presser any time he wants, right? I mean, if he says, I'm speaking right now, all the cameras show up. He's the president. So he could easily have done this tomorrow if there was actual evidence of voter fraud pouring in, or Philadelphia started taking false votes that were not postmarked or something like that. And there will be lawsuits in Pennsylvania, and there probably should be lawsuits in Pennsylvania because their voting standards are garbage. As far as sort of the vote count pause and all of that, and does that create potential for fraud? What I've seen is Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, which is Pittsburgh, they paused the vote count because I guess they said they were short on staff. In Milwaukee, they didn't actually pause the vote count.
They didn't know there was an election on tonight.
Yeah, exactly. In Milwaukee, they didn't actually pause the vote count. They just decided they're going to release all vote totals from Milwaukee and the absentees at the same time. So they just weren't going to give a continuous update. They were just going to release it as a bulk, which honestly, since I'm not a local election official, I don't know how that is supposed to work, to be completely honest with you.
Right.
If there's something illegal there are many, 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 many lawyers on the ground. Tim Alberta from Washington Post says, Wisconsin's going to be very, very tight. Bulk of outstanding ballots coming from Milwaukee County. Clinton won it by 162,000. Biden currently ahead by 53,000. Trump is currently ahead by 110,000. If Biden picks up enough to reach parity with Clinton in 2016, they are virtually tied. So everything much too close for comfort, obviously.
Yeah, I do think, what Trump was doing, and I think we all feel a little squeamish, at least, about what he did. But what he is doing is setting his own narrative. And it is my contention that the left was going to accuse him, whatever they were going to accuse him of, and whether he takes the bait or he doesn't take the bait, they were going to push their narrative tomorrow that Biden had won, and Trump decided to jump on top of that and preempt it. We said we weren't going to make predictions, and we really didn't make predictions. I had a very little bit of money on the election, but I made it a little bit of money because I didn't want to make a big prediction. The one election prediction I made is that this would happen. The one election prediction I made is that this would go to court, and the president has already promised us that will happen.
It's the old story. We wouldn't have gotten this far if he weren't Trump, and we wouldn't be sitting here uncomfortable if he weren't Trump. I mean, it's always the same thing with Trump. He comes with his virtues and his flaws in the same package.
Yeah, as do we all.
As do we.
I want to thank all of our viewers tonight. Many millions of you have tuned in over the course of the evening, and we thank you for that. I want to thank our Daily Wire subscribers and members. Thank you for making it possible for us to do the work that we do. Thank you for coming on this journey with us. All the announcements that we've made tonight are to add value to your membership. Candace Owens with us live in Nashville. PragerU's entire catalog behind our paywall. 3 new investigative journalists, a new morning show called Morning Wire, and for the first time, fiction. We're going to move into film and TV and film on the fiction side. All of that is going to be coming with much more specific announcements over the coming weeks and couple of months. We couldn't be more excited. We're making enormous investments because we have to replace the media. So thank you for spending your time with us tonight. Thanks for becoming a subscriber over at dailywire.com. It's not too late. If you want to use the promo code ELECTION, you'll get your 25% off, and you're going to need it because all of this is going to kick back up in just a matter of a few hours. We're going to go get a small amount of sleep, come back ready to tell you. Obviously, we'll all wake up to incredible news in the morning, breaking news, and you're going to get the best analysis of that news right here at the Daily Wire. Thank you for tuning in with us tonight, and we will see you very, very soon. Way too soon. And thank you, fellas, for the great night.
That's great.